The next presentation has the title Improving GDPR Readiness in Your Automated OT Manufacturing line with Siemens, Mindsphere and Mocana Trust Center. Mocana is also the company representative who is coming up here on stage. He's the Vice President of Customer Success at Mocana. Please welcome with a big hand of applause, Rolf O'Grady.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Hello, I'm Rolf O'Grady. I represent Mocana. I am responsible for our customer success. I realize I have two challenges right out of the gate. No one wants to hear about GDPR, and I'm between you and the Beer as a Service presentation. Ultimately, I wanted to chat with you a little bit about why I am here today, or why we're here today. GDPR, for those of you who don't know, is basically a security framework policy governance for most of Europe, which really has to do with sensitive customer information. So what I'm looking to speak to you all about is about how we're working with Siemens and Mindsphere to help solve that problem. So part of the challenge that we see in the market today is, if you look at the left side, security, IT security is where most companies spend most of their money, both in terms of money itself as well as resources and manpower. But this is the way we traditionally think about security. The right side of this picture is operational technologies. This is where we don't spend a lot of money on security. This is where we have purpose-built systems that really have no concept or no requirement for security when it's initially built and deployed, which creates some significant challenges. The other challenges with these devices is how do I empower, or how do I put security on them? Because as a device that gets deployed, what typically you'll see is very weak security access control mechanisms like a pre-shared key, a username and a password that's stamped across all the devices. So what we do is help address some of these challenges. Another challenge you run into is as you look at devices that are deployed, and there's nothing wrong with this, it's just that historically there's been no need for security in the operational environments. But some of the challenges that we're now starting to recognize is that with these devices sitting in networks, and the fact that these networks are now starting to transfer traffic across my current IT infrastructure, now I've got a problem, because now I have devices that are inherently unsecure that are now traversing a network that is or needs to be very secure. So this is one major consideration here, is one or more target vectors for compromising information on the information technology side. So this is just something from Gartner. It's their definition of governance or a framework. For me, pretty much most standards are going to adhere to this. In my definition of it, I always think about people, process, and tools. People are the folks who are going to be responsible for managing, deploying, analyzing the environments. And those folks need to be fit for purpose. They need to have principle of least privilege, meaning they should only be doing work inside the responsibilities of their role. Second is process. With security and adherence to governance, a company has to have certain processes and workflows that need to be able to be managed, audited, monitored, reported on. And then the last thing are tools. These are the things that we've historically used, ways to secure devices. When you bring all three of those together, that's how we meet certain corporate governance or regulatory governances. I'm throwing these up here because there's just a bunch of stuff out there. Probably most folks here have asked or are interested in 62443 and how we might be able to help with that problem. That leads into GDPR readiness, but ultimately, from an access control perspective, who's allowed to do what? Is the data encrypted at rest? Is it encrypted in flight? Who provisioned policy? How can I audit who provisioned policy? How can I basically track what transpired in my environment? These are all the things that roll up into GDPR. And as I mentioned earlier, in most security solutions today, one of the challenges is you're always chasing your tail, in the sense that you have to wait for something to happen, you have to measure something bad happen, then you need to take a corrective action, then you need to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But ultimately, it's always chasing an event that's going to happen in the future that you really cannot stop. So that's fundamentally a challenge with most systems. We've looked at the challenge and tried to approach it from a different perspective, which is if we harden the platform in the first place and you make it tamper resistant, if not close to tamper proof, then you've eliminated a lot of headache around securing devices by simply flipping the paradigm. So this really basically represents a couple of, actually 3 or 4 different areas that most customers are interested in when they speak with Mocana. The first one is amazingly, the number of customers I've met with that just want to know, how many devices do I have out there? Where are my devices? What current version of code are my devices running? When's the last time my devices were updated? What devices haven't been updated? So just understanding what's actually out in the environment is of tremendous importance. Another area that a lot of customers have expressed concern on is when I want to put something on that device, whether it be an application, a piece of firmware, a patch, a configuration file, a script, a JSON, basically any artifact I want to put on the device, how do I have a high level of assurance that what I want to land on that device is actually landing on the device? I call that supply chain of custody. So from the moment the code is conceived, or at the moment of code readiness, we can track and control very rigorously all the way through the time the device is actually updated with that artifact. And the device itself, with our technology, we can actually determine at the device, do we want to accept this or not? And the inverse is true. Is this package allowed to be deployed on this device? So high level of control through the supply chain. The third then is one of protection. So great, you're helping me with identifying my devices, you're helping me with controlling access to my devices, but now I want to make that device tamper resistant or tamper proof. So we can do some other things in the form of measuring and validating the veracity of the secure boot process. We can help with creating access control lists on a IoT device, which is not necessarily easy to do. Actually, we do that well with Siemens. And then once I've protected that device, can I encrypt command and control traffic between devices? So these are all things that we can do in the protect phase. And then finally, once I've done all that work, it'd be really nice if I can get information from those devices. So one of the things that we can also help with is with many existing systems, and I saw a couple here on the trade show floor, is we can help normalize and correlate information. So when we log an event, we actually send a signed encrypted event to a logging station. So the level of confidence in that logging output is extremely high, approaching 100%, which is a challenge with many modern day systems, as you have to go through and correlate good from bad. So Trust Center, it's just in a nutshell, what we're focused on once again is the complete lifecycle management of a device. And by lifecycle management, I mean the software patch management of the device, the security of the device, the key and certificate management of the device through its entire life cycle. And in so doing, we're also providing some really interesting possibilities in the form of being able to help with the manufacturing process. If we're embedded at the early phases, we can help secure that entire supply chain of custody, especially as you spawn across potentially multiple manufacturers, which then also gives you a very easy to install security solution, in the sense that once the device has been pre-configured, it's literally turn it on and it will literally configure and provision itself. We leverage certificates. For those that aren't familiar, just basically keys and certificates are the way we use, or things that we use to identify and encrypt traffic. But ultimately, one of the challenges of those technologies is it becomes very difficult to manage. We have greatly simplified and minimized that whole process to the point where it's extremely simple, and most importantly, we only broker the requests. So depending on what certificate authority or PKI infrastructure the customer wants to use, for us it's really just pointing us to those sources and mapping accordingly. And ultimately what that really means is a great simplification of all of these challenges. The key storage and management that we use is military grade, and it's really designed to handle millions of devices. So from a scaling perspective, simplicity of use perspective, those are the things that we're trying to solve in concert with Siemens and Mindsphere. And with that, I want to thank everyone for your time.